with an officer and he took your statement, etc., etc. It's a very simple process, and it is part of the Commissioner's vision as we aim to put more and more police officers out on the streets, and hopefully over time probably are even able to repurpose some of our police stations so that we can have a better management of our resources, pay less rent, that type of thing. All right. The online reporting is going to be available on the Ttps webpage, on the home page, and it is essentially extremely simple. You will first see an instruction screen. The instruction screen is where you're allowed to report the crime. It has some basic requirements. You will need to have your email address, your phone number. You need to have an incident start date, an end date, and the location of an incident. The actual report is quite clear and concise, very, very simple to handle. Let me just say at this point though, if you need a level of immediacy in terms of attention, for instance, you are being robbed at that point in time in your house or something of that nature, the online portal will not be the route you will want to use to get that level of immediate attention. You will still continue to use the 999 at that particular point. If, however, the crime has already occurred or something of that nature and you're just making a report, then you can feel free to use the online reporting. The second exception to the online reporting that I'd like to bring to the attention of everyone is that of traffic offenses. As of this point in time, we cannot use online reporting for traffic offenses, as there will be a requirement for legislative adjustments in order for us to do so. We are, however, speaking with the relevant authorities to have some of those adjustments made so that hopefully in the short future, in the immediate future, we'll be able to add traffic offenses to this. The report, the crime scene form is very, very, very simple. As you will see, it will have basic things like your name, your address, all your kind of bio data that you would need so that we will be able to identify exactly who is making this report. When the report is actually made, what we will do is we will generate for you a unique ID number. The ID number basically would start off with the year of the report, followed by the month of the report, and then a randomized set of numbers, probably numbering 5 or 6 additional numbers. So you're probably looking at, let's say, 2020 06 1 2 3 4 5, right? Each person will have their own unique number, and that is how we will be able to assess your case when you call for additional information. If for some reason you have made a report to a police station in person and you are still coming online to try and follow up on your report, the form caters for this. There's a section in which it will ask you if a report was already made. You will then press yes. And when you press yes, a field is going to open up, which is going to allow you to tell us which police station you made the report and approximately what time, day, etc. All this information in real time is going to be seen by our operational command center, the main one. And there, when they accept the information that you have reported, they will then decipher what's going on and filter that information out to the relevant divisions and the relevant investigators. Just as is the case now, where you go to a police station and you get a receipt, this online report will generate immediately for you a receipt, which you will then be able to use to come back to find out the status of your report. As it stands right now, we are supposed to be able to get back to you in terms of an update of your report within a 6 to 12 hour window. And in that period, you should have basic information as to where your case, or which station is handling your case. You should even be able to have the name of the investigator assigned, that type of stuff, and you will be allowed to follow up. Our operational command center is also the area in which follow-up will be done. So they will keep in contact regularly with the particular police station to try and keep you advised as to where your report is at this point in time, what's the status, that sort of thing. If you look on the screen now, you'll just see a basic example of what the email receipt will look like. It will basically say Ttps online report. You'll see some report ID numbers there, but your number should be something more like 2020-06 123456. And it will basically at that point just tell you, dear Mr. whatever, the TTPS has accepted your report, etc., about whatever you will have reported about. In this example, you'll see an abandoned vehicle. And of course, it will be signed or e-signed by the Commissioner of Police. This email receipt is equal to the receipt you receive right now in the police station. And this is the receipt you will hold on to be able to further follow up on your particular case involved. There's one more screen. There's of course a screen in which we would kind of give you a summation. It's called the thank you screen, and at that point in time you would have successfully finished making your report. It is extremely user friendly. We deliberately designed it to be as short and as simple as possible. Even in terms of the crimes reported, we keep putting drop-down boxes to assist you so that you don't have to necessarily describe what you think it is, because of course there's the television definition of some things, and then as far as we are concerned here, there may be a different definition. So people, for instance, often call burglaries robberies, or robberies, whatever. We will have to we'll give you the drop box for you to describe specifically what happened so that your investigation can go to the right person and get the right type of justice. That's it.
That's it? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrews. Again, so there'll be heavy public awareness campaign to try to explain to the public how to use this situation of the online reporting. In a nutshell, the online reporting, it means that the citizen now, whether it be someone stole 2 mangoes in your yard, there's a situation of fraud, cyber crime, whatever it is, you will have different avenues. You go online, you stay from your home, and then again, what we're trying to do is to put a delivery service to the public. Same thing that we did with the gender-based violence unit. On many occasions, persons, for every simple matter, you have to go to a police station. So with this now, it will make it easier. It can immediately be streamlined to that relevant department. So if you're living in wherever, and there's a matter that involves fraud, that FIB, cyber, whatever, it still has to go to that specific unit. So this now will go immediately to that unit through the online reporting. And again, it means that this may very well cause a situation of less need for so many police stations. I always mention that we have 77 police stations here to deal with 1.3 million people. In New York City, there are 71 stations just about to deal with 13 million. Less police stations can mean more police officers out in the streets. It goes right back to the concept of 21st century policing. There's that perception we had in the 70s and 80s that every time there's crime, you try to build a police station at a street corner. That does not solve crime. Every time there's a police station, it means more police officers have to man the police stations, and it means less police officers out in the street. Out of my 7,000 odd police officers, 2,300 have to guard police stations. And that obviously, it means that something has gone wrong. We've been building police stations. I can run certain areas from Santa Cruz. You move from Santa Cruz Police Station, in 5 minutes you get to Maraval Police Station, in 3 minutes you get to St. Clair Police Station, in 2 minutes from there you get to the Police Training Academy, 1 minute there you get to St. James Police Station, 4 minutes you get to the Western Police Station in 4 routes, 3 minutes you can get to the Diamond Vale Police Station. And they're all packed. And let's not talk about Port of Spain and the Woodbrook area. So again, this concept is with the use of technology and making it easier for the citizens. I now move on to, just for information, I know many persons have voiced their concerns pertaining to the immediate need for certificates of character. That fingerprint service at the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the stations, it will be reopened with effect from the 22nd of June. We are putting the appropriate PPE gear, and we are trying to use it much more via the machine than manual. The police officers, they are being properly briefed, and so as I said, from the 22nd of June, that would commence. Now move on to the situation that I spoke about initially. I will ask Mr. Gideon Dixon, the President of the Police Social Welfare Association, to speak on this matter, and then Mr. Chandler. It has to do with something that has been going about for the last few days. And what I have noticed is that anytime a certain reporter in the Express writes something, 3 hours and 23 minutes later, Kirkwaite will then send a response on social media. It is on the button. All 33 articles by that reporter in the last 2 years, all negative to the police service, exactly right after 3 minutes, or Mr. Kirkwaite will then send a response on social media. So that WWF tag team, I'm not taking that bait. It is, if they could keep printing from now till the cows come home, I will think that as a political leader, he will have something to do for the election rather than just keep repeating anything that Dennis Wren has to say. What I do find alarming, and I'd like to make mention of it, is that in the Express editorial, there's a very interesting article they put, a line. They said there's a perception of a cloud of interlocking interests. All I will say for now, pertaining to that, the Express, and to those involved in this investigation, you should practice what you preach. And I will say more about that when time comes, if required. I am not going to be bullied or pressured by anyone to direct me how to do my job or how the police service will operate. The fact of the matter is that the perception that persons are trying to throw on this matter as it pertains to the investigation of with Mr. Hackshaw is that the police must not investigate the police and we are trying to cover for police officers. So let me just clarify something. In the last 2 years, over 120 files of police officers have been sent to the DPP. 120 in the last 2 years. It means that virtually every single week, especially under my watch, at least one police officer, his file has gone to the DPP for possible charges to be laid on that police officer based on what we perceive. Almost one police officer almost every week. So that rumshop talk that anyone is trying to pelt to try to give the impression that police officers protect police officers, what is it in the old time days, you got the wheel and come again. It is not going to work. The fact of the matter is that we would do what is required. But certain individuals, they need to stay in their lane and do not feel that by putting public pressure, it is going to cause me to direct an investigation to adhere to the agenda of others. In fact, there's a very senior police officer that we have 2 files that is presently in the office of the DPP. And for 3 months now, we are patiently waiting for the DPP to have it returned to us. And that officer also has a very senior rank. So let us not be fooled into believing that we do not send in files to the DPP based on the rank of the police officer. What I find, again, very disturbing is that persons involved in this investigation as possible persons of interest should not be using their position to influence me via public pressure to direct how we conduct investigations. This is history taking place right now, members of the media, where certain persons who may be deemed as persons of interest in an investigation, they are trying to use their position in the media to pump every few days different things to try to get me or the police service to direct how an investigation must go, pertaining to the same, that is also linked to the same person who is actually sending the articles. This is history. And I mean, I think it is unfortunate. What I would say again, I will continue to stress, the Office of the DPP and the Office of the Commissioner of Police, we will not be intimidated or try to be lured or baited by anyone telling us what to do, who to investigate, who should do the investigating, and give us the priority of investigations. Again, local parlance, the fast and outer place, to be telling that. they'll definitely be parang in the wrong house if they feel that they could put pressure on me. They push me left, I will go right. I will do what is right. And I will stick to the letter of the law, and I will do the right thing. I will not expect, if they feel, so let them send another letter to the editor, let them put another headline on Sunday. It ain't going to change a thing. I intend to do what is right, and I will make the right choice. I have no intention to make the popular choice. When I put my hand on a Bible to hold this position, and even when I was a minister in another place, it has nothing to do with popularity or doing the right thing or to please myself. I could easily do a cop-out, no pun intended, and just hand over a file. But I know exactly what is taking place in this investigation, and I intend to do the right thing. Furthermore, it is quite obvious that, if persons are not aware, the PCA, they are presently conducting an investigation on the same matter. When this is completed, both reports from the police, which has already been completed, will be compiled with that of the PCA. And if it warrants the DPP office to have it, I will do so. But for persons to continue to every 3 days push in letters and statements in a newspaper, there's something I'd like the public to be aware. A matter of this becomes a matter of interest in a newspaper and by one reporter every 4 days. And then a social activist Pitbull will then send a response a few hours later. 3 hours and 23 minutes, by the way. Check it next time. And there's a saying, thou protest too much. I will now ask Mr. Dixon to give the view of the Police Social and Welfare Association on this matter. Mr. Dixon.
Good day all. Thanks very much, Mr. Commissioner. Excuse me. On behalf of the Police Social Welfare Association, we would want to put on record that we support due process. That is simply means Mr. Hackshaw, who is also a member of the association, is innocent until proven guilty. And the mere fact that every other week or every 4 days, as said by the Commissioner, comments are placed in the public space to attack his credentials, to attack his body of work, we will have advised our member already, and we are aware that he has taken the necessary action in relation to him. We frowned on it, which suggests and which reported that he had no criminal misgivings. We understand that there is an investigation that the PCA is conducting and is incomplete. However, we would also want to put on record that we are aware that the PCA would have sent versions of the incomplete investigation to both the PSC and even to the Commissioner of Police. And we believe that this contaminates any investigation. We feel that it places bias in terms of a prejudicial outcome, and we also have records to show that the PCA would have already labeled police officers as the biggest gang in Trinidad and Tobago. That is stated categorically. And we believe in this instance here, a witch hunt is being conducted in relation to Mr. Hackshaw. We would want everyone to know that the association position is that due process must in fact take place. He is innocent until proven guilty, and upon completion of the subsequent investigation by the PCA, as said by the Commissioner of Police, we will support whatever the outcome is at that point in time. But for now, the association fully endorses Mr. Hackshaw continuing in doing his job as the Deputy Commissioner of Police, and we rest our case at this point in time.
Okay, I'll now have the Head of Legal, Mr. Chandler, to make a few statements pertaining to the same matter, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening, everyone. Before I get to touch on that point, there are some other topics that I want to just go through and bring to the attention of the general public. And that is, first and foremost, the Ttps has made recommendations through its line minister for the provision of mandatory requirements for medical practitioners, doctors, nurses, etc., to report to the police matters which involve domestic violence, stabbings, gunshot wounds, matters of a sexual nature, and just generally offenses that involve violence of any nature. We see this as necessary, and in moving forward in our 21st century policing, we consider that medical evidence is necessary, and sometimes you have a virtual complainant, a victim, as we would call it, and they are sometimes unwilling or fearful. And because of that, medical evidence may not be provided. So what we're trying to do is to impose a duty upon medical practitioners to provide this information. We must also consider the risk to the general public, in that if offences of this very nature continue to prevail and there's no reporting line and requirement, then they will go undetected. And as a result of which, we have put forward these recommendations. In addition to which, it also provides us with statistical information, because information is key. We live in the age of information and technology. So to assist us in investigations and creating profiles, we require this information. Therefore, it is for emergency physicians, doctors, nurses, who become aware of these injuries to make the report. And that is the remit of what we have advanced thus far. Because dangerous criminals can go just unabated and continue as predators, even when we have sexual offenses, children, because we try so steadfastly to protect our children. And to this end, many reports, or many instances, I should say, reports are not made. So we would have information, but no evidence. So the purpose of this is really to lend an evidential basis and platform to propel investigations and to assist the police in the execution of its duty. And in doing so, we would have looked at the Canadian legislation, that is the Mandatory Gunshot Wounds Reporting Act of 2005, to direct us and to assist us in our endeavors. Secondly, I want to speak to a topic I think that I would be prefacing the Commissioner, and that is the issue of the conduct of police officers. Today, I believe, a particular police officer would have been suspended from duty relative to... All right, so I'll skip that and move on to, yes. So, to move forward, I want to move forward to the issue that Commissioner and Mr. Dixon would have touched on. And I don't want to keep beating the same drum. But the fact of the matter is this. We have a situation where the Office of the Commissioner is or there's an endeavor to push the Commissioner to submit files to the Office of the DPP. And this is pursuant to the Deputy Commissioner, the Acting Deputy Commissioner, Mr. Hackshaw. Let us understand the genesis of this matter. The genesis of this matter is ill-founded because the report in itself, normally what happens is financial institutions would get a report or if they see a suspicious transaction, they would report it to the Financial Intelligence Unit. Then they would send it on to the police for us to do an investigation. When you consider the Financial Intelligence Units and the Financial Intelligence Act, the Proceeds of Crime Act, there are particular sections that provide against the dissemination of information. So many times what you find happening is that persons are investigated and they are not even aware. And the design of the act is for that surreptitiousness to protect the individual and the institutions in the investigations. What has happened is that information was published by the Express newspaper. They could have only gotten it from one source, a senior police officer. To that end, an investigation was launched. But it surrounded Mr. Hackshaw. So the fact of the matter is, what you have is an institution in the Express inextricably linked to this investigation. where this information, what is the sources of this information? Where did it come from? How did they stumble upon this? So that being the case, you got this information, you have this information, and it is in contravention of the Financial Intelligence Act, the Proceeds of Crime Act. Someone would have breached that, and to that avail, a warrant was executed at the offices of the Express in pursuance of this investigation surrounding Mr. Hackshaw. Yet, we have a situation here where people are asking and pushing, and every few days you're seeing an article about that surrounds Mr. Hackshaw. As Mr. Dixon would have alluded to, the fact of the matter is an investigation was done. An investigation was done by a senior police officer, a seasoned police officer who is also qualified in law. And he would have found no evidence to support a criminal charge. Now, certain quarters have said, well, why is it that that file was not sent to DPP? If there's nothing there that warrants any further action or further advice, there's no requirement for the police to submit the file to the DPP. The file would normally go to the DPP if it is that the DPP. But when we consider Section 26 of Standing Order 10 of the Police Service's Standing Orders, this was since what? 2001 that was published. That was set out in there, that police officers, if a police officer has to charge another police officer, there's no requirement that he seeks the permission of the DPP. However, now, usually there's a charge of misbehavior in public office, and that would require the consent of the DPP in order to proceed with charges. So hence, they then go to the DPP. But if there's nothing there, and there's no requirement there, then why the need? So it is just a matter of trying to put a strain on the relationship, the symbiotic relationship between the Office of the Commissioner of Police and the DPP, to say, well, send for a file. As alluded to and stated before, the Police Complaints Authority, again, as an independent body, and under Section 21, they have the remit to investigate any wrongdoing of a police officer. They are conducting their own investigation. And the normal procedure and practice is, if they find anything, they'll send a copy to the Commissioner of Police and they'll send one to the Director of Public Prosecutions. So if there's anything to be unearthed, there's an independent investigation being done by the PCA. So if there's something that the police and experienced, seasoned investigator missed, well then, they'll find it and they'll send it to the Director of Public Prosecutions. But the continued publication and publicizing this matter, even if you were to take this case at its highest, Mr. Dixon raised a valid point. And there was something that, let us say something was missed, and Mr. Hackshaw is now charged with an offense. The fact of the matter is, the amount of the way they have gone about this and published this, splashed this all over, they've already biased this matter and prejudiced him. So that, how far can this matter really reach in any event? But the fact of the matter is, and I want to finish on the point that an investigation, and a thorough investigation was done, and the investigation was closed. An independent body is doing their own investigation. And should they find something, well then, we will deal with it at that point in time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chandler. Before I go back to Mr. Chandler, again, just to close off on that last point, in the editorial of a certain newspaper, they wanted to express themselves, obviously, and they had the audacity to state in their editorial, why should the Commissioner of Police ask that all files be sent to me prior to getting to the DPP? In that any single person, police officer, has a right to send any file to the DPP, and the Commissioner of Police should not know. I don't know if it is that they are aware, because it is the same media that if charges are laid, I would be the one that they will contact immediately to get an update. So it is common sense that the Commissioner of Police, not for me to get involved, I do not get involved in anything when it comes to these investigations, especially high-profile investigations. I make sure I provide the leadership, the management, I provide timelines, and I make sure persons adhere to it, they do exactly what is required, and we try to make sure that these matters come to a conclusion one way or the other. It has nothing to do with it other than that, but it's common sense that I am the Commissioner of Police. How could something go off to an external party without my knowledge? But they had an issue with that. So I would ask them the same situation. If it is that you have an issue that any police officer could send any file to the DPP without the knowledge of the Commissioner of Police, I would hope that they will be able to say now that any reporter could publish anything in the Express and the editor-in-chief must not know, and then let the public read it. Do so and like so. And going back to Mr. Chandler's other statement as it pertains to the concern that I have seen, we've looked at best practice. There are situations where shootings will take place, stabbings, domestic violence, persons being physically abused through domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual offenses. And we have seen that there's nothing to enforce that law to make it mandatory that if these incidents take place, whether it be a private or public health institution, the information must come to the police service. This is an avenue we think that can be used to ensure that even if the victim is unwilling to give information through the medical institutions, making it mandatory for them to forward information to the police, it means that we can still go after the perpetrator even without the consent or the report by the victim. And again, it is common sense. I know persons may want to go against this, even in some of the medical institutions, they may have an issue with it. But we are speaking about someone being shot. It means that there was a crime that took place. Someone who was stabbed, a crime took place. A woman who was raped, someone who has been beaten through domestic abuse, child abuse. These situations should be mandatory, that as soon as this takes place, and that those individuals have to go to a medical institution, whether it be private or public, it is mandatory that this information must come to the police. We are just trying to find avenues to ensure that individuals who are criminal elements who continue to try to beat the system, we are going to find avenues to box them in. And again, going back to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in this situation as it pertains to domestic violence, within the last few months, we have established the gender-based violence unit. We are going to launch shortly the sexual offense unit. We continue to call on victims, relatives, neighbors, co-workers to use the 999 and the ERP for immediate responses for situations of gender-based violence. We've established the police app so that crimes could be reported anonymously. And also we have changed how we deal with restraining orders. Just as important, again, as I stated, it is unfortunate that after these situations, families, friends, and everyone claims that they knew about it after the fact. So going back to this situation where we speak about with the medical institutions, if it is that a woman is badly beaten, or she's afraid, or she does not want to report it, that report should still come to the police for us to investigate. So this might even if that person, based on fear, she goes back home, we can still take decisive action on the perpetrator because now we have information that can be used as evidence to verify that that person committed the act. And you may ask how the woman is beaten. The medical report comes straight to the police service. We can now immediately look at where she was struck. We can then go to the home, and you might be surprised to see that you will see bruises on the knuckle of the husband. So these are just matters that can be used towards trying to reduce domestic violence and other crime, as I stated, shootings, stabbings, sexual offenses, child abuse, and domestic violence. And the final point, before we close, the final point here has to do with my concern whereby police officers, very few, believe that it is their constitutional right to openly show support for a political party. Every one of my police officers have their right to support who they choose. But that must be done and remain in here. At any time, any police officer in or out of uniform decides to openly condemn a political party or support a political party or even decide to go up for an election, go up as a candidate, and then after boasts on the front page that he supports the philosophy and the role and function and the principles of a political party, those are the type of police officers that must be immediately disciplined. This has happened recently, and with immediate effect, that police officer has been suspended. I am setting the tone very early before we get into the general election. I have no intention for any police officer to openly show his hand, because when this happens, this is going to affect the confidence, the trust that the public would have of the police service in any matter. Because we do know that in this country, every decision that is made, it is based on either red or yellow. It is that the police, especially the police service, we arrest this one is because we are PNM puppets. We arrest this one is because we are UNT puppets. We are not. Unlike others who see only red and yellow, we see red, white, and black. And we will continue to be impartial, independent, and transparent. And at no time would I have any police officer openly showing his hand, especially as we go into this election campaign, the general election, whereby the police officers have to be involved in many operations dealing with the safety and security throughout this campaign. We have no intention to have at any time any police officer smear the image of the police service as being an independent and transparent body. With that, I'll just ask Mr. Chandler to clarify.
Ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake. Constitutionally, you have certain rights. But your rights are not a total right to do as you wish. And what the Commissioner is alluding to is, whilst you constitutionally have the right to freedom of speech, do you have the right to defame another person's character? No, you do not. So that when you speak, you must speak within the confines of the law. Similarly, you have the right to express yourself politically, but when you do so, you must do so on the understanding, as a police officer, you must always appear to the general public to be unbiased. The public can never believe that you as a police officer you have a particular partisanship. Even though that might be the case, you cannot publicly express that. And that goes contrary to the police service regulation, section 138, section 139, which speak specifically to these things, so that those things are expressly prohibited. And it is even more egregious in nature to actually advance yourself as a candidate. I can think of nothing much more biased than that. So that the conduct of police officers must always be that of unbiased, especially when we're dealing with a season where we're in a politically charged environment. Elections are constitutionally due very soon, and as a result of which, people have election fever. But that being the case, police officers cannot and should not do as they see, as they believe, and express themselves publicly, whether it be on the newspaper, whether it be Facebook, because there's a perception that, well, this is Facebook, this is my private page, and what you could do. No. As long as it is there, it is out there in the public space, even if it's your private page and it's whoever, you're expressing it to others. That is a no-no. And that is the point that we are making, so that any instances such as this, we will treat it very swiftly and within the confines of the law. And it goes hand in hand with the remit of what we are doing in terms of the police officers, errant police officers who have flagrant disregard for our regulations. We are treating with it because discipline is the order of the day of the Ttps. And Trinidad and Tobago needs and deserves an unbiased and a hard-working Ttps. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm now open for questions by the media.
Good afternoon. Alexander Bruzol from Trinidad Express. Mr. Griffith, Mr. Chandler, I appreciate the edification on the system by which the police interacts with the DPP. But, Mr. Griffith, you did note last week that the very same file on Mr. Axel will be sent to the DPP for the sake of transparency. So I'm just curious if that was done yet, or when it will be done.
Sorry, the very same, I lost you there.
You said last week that the file on the investigation, Mr. Axel, will be sent to the DPP. So I'm just curious as if it was done.
Right, yeah, sure, yeah. What I said, my intention is that I will go to the DPP for review based on what we had completed. Now, I have to be very careful. If it is that the police, they launched an investigation and they said that the investigation was closed, if I just immediately hand over the file to the DPP, what that will show is loss of confidence that I have in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in the conduct of their duties. So what we can do and we intend to do is that we can go to the DPP and we can ask if it is that he sees any shortcomings. But until the PCA file comes to us and it is completed, how many investigations are we going to continue to have on one matter? The police conducted an investigation, the PCA is doing an investigation, we want the DPP to do an investigation on the same matter. So the fact is that if something is already closed, I'm not going to try to regurgitate something else. We will wait until the PCA would have conducted complete their investigation, and when that is done, then we can decide. Bearing in mind also, there have been 2 files that are outstanding that is in the hand of the DPP. Probably when it is that is completed, we will then hand over, because this is a senior officer. I do not want to burden the DPP with too many files, but we have 2 files of a very senior officer that is in the hands of the DPP for the last few months. So as soon as those files return to us, we can then also consider having that file sent forward.
And quickly stemming off that, it's a similar investigation like Mr. Aksha. Last week, unfortunately, Mr. Frank C. Prasad received a bulletin email. He has since stated that he has written to you, to your office, and where he has raised concerns about his address, his name, the individuals and officers surrounding him, as well as the very fact that that information itself, which purported to be a police report, was leaked in much a similar manner. So we're just curious if any investigation is if his letter has reached your desk, or if any investigation is being done into that matter.
Yes, I have spoken to him personally on a few occasions recently as it pertains to that, and you're quite right. The matter is being investigated by the special branch. We are doing a proper threat assessment. I give him the assurance that we will do all that is possible to ensure his well-being. There is that concern, obviously, of information being passed in the police stations, which again goes back to the importance of online reporting. Many persons, they believe, there are 3 ways, there's something I mentioned, there are 3 ways where you can get information fed to the public in immediate time: telephone, television, and tell a police officer. When it is you give that in a police station, the police officer just has a way that they will love to do a video, do a photo of the station diary, and then send it to the public. So through online reporting, it goes back to, and it prevents this. If there was online reporting, the report would have been sent. It would have been confidential. It would not have gone to a station where every single police officer in the station can just open the station diary and see the confidential information. This is also, again, going back to domestic violence, where sometimes the persons they do not want this to be made public, but they want the person to be investigated. So through the online reporting, this will prevent the situation where persons just love to open a station diary, love to take a photograph, and then love to send it on social media for their own selfish agenda. This, however, is just a very few police officers who just do not understand the importance of confidentiality. And by the online reporting, it will prevent such situations in the future.
All right, good afternoon. Peter Christopher from Guardian Media Limited. I have a couple of questions with regard to the presentation on body cameras. Mr. Andrews made reference to the evidence being used, mainly being that of sound, but I am also wondering how many cases have we seen in Trinidad and Tobago when any footage or audio used or recorded by a body camera has actually informed an investigation, and if there is indeed proper legislation in place so that the footage recorded by these body cameras can be used in criminal cases.
Well, I could start the ball rolling, and if you want to come after, but video footage is admissible in court. So the video footage you get from the body cameras, from the cameras of the emergency response patrol vehicles, the audio that you will get from the body cameras, all of this can be used. It is admissible in court.
Yeah, correct, Commissioner. So at the end of the day, legislatively, that would be catered for under the Evidence Act.
Okay. Yeah.
Of course, I was asking if there have been instances.
So, because it's new. So
I don't think so. No. Yeah, please.
If I can say something here, I just want to make sure I clarify something. I am not by any means suggesting that video is not important or video is not the end goal with a body camera. The point I was simply making is that in some instances where you hear people have the counter argument against body cameras saying, well, it may fall, or it, if I frighten somebody, you wouldn't be able to see anything. And my point was that as an absolute statement is not correct, because sometimes sound, just the sound that you pick up from the body camera is enough to give you an idea as to what happened. And that is why I gave the example of the Atlanta police officer. We never saw video from him, right? But the sound is what led to the district attorney in Atlanta determining that he had the necessary guilty mind, and that is what led to the charge of felony murder. So that was just the point I was bringing. It is not that I'm suggesting that it is just a tape recorder. I'm not saying that. Yeah?
But again, the audio, to show audio can be used. I'll give you a simple example. Prior to the death of Mr. Skeet, the individual who was from Cocorite, when he brought to our attention, when he did the witness statement and he spoke to several police officers informing us that there was a major conspiracy to bring down the commissioner of police, they were by certain individuals, inclusive of a few police officers, for $50,000. There was a recording that he intended to carry with him on the day when he was to have the handover, and that was going to be used as evidence. Unfortunately, he was killed just days before. And that, again, is also part of this whole situation of this investigation that is taking place. But that's just an example to show that audio can actually be used as admissible in court.
Hi, good afternoon. Shane Superville from the Newsday newspaper here. I have two really quick questions. The first one for Mr. Andrews. In terms of the online reporting, I would imagine that a feature like this would require a lot of security, cyber security, in terms of the privacy of the people's information being provided. Just give us a brief insight as to some of the security features available to prevent any sort of leakage or spreading of information.
Well, I wouldn't be able to give you specific technical information as to the security features. What I can tell you, though, is that we have done everything in our power to ensure that it is as safe as possible and as secure as possible. In fact, this, as I said earlier, was supposed to be launched at the same time with the app. At that time, however, I still was not as comfortable as I am now that we were ready from a security point of view. So we held it back until we essentially stress tested as much as we could have, and frankly try to hack into it ourselves, etc., etc., etc. And I am confident that at this point in time we have a reasonably or above reasonably safe platform.
Just one last question for the Commissioner himself. The police service app has been online for quite some time now. I don't know if off the top of your head or if you could just give me a general idea of how successful the app has been in cracking down on certain crimes, being able to get information and so on.
Yeah, Mr. Andrews will...
Okay, so I'll help the Commissioner with this one. The app so far, to tell you the truth, has been probably the revelation of the year. It is something that we are very, very, very happy with. We get a lot of tip-offs through the app at this point in time, in no small part because of the anonymous feature. We get anywhere upwards of 4 or 5 tip-offs probably each day from the app. It has been very, very successful, and it is successful in both directions in terms of us receiving, and it is also allowing us to be better poised to disseminate information to the public, because as things happen in real time, we are able to put it through the app. So for instance, our ability to find missing persons and stuff, we are seeing a significant improvement in that area, because almost in real time, as we get the reports, we are able to put the pictures and so forth of these people on the app, and of course the public gets involved and we get information, and of course that will lead to a better overall result. But very, very, very happy with the app. I would suggest everybody downloads it. It is really a very simple way to communicate with us in real time. The app also allows for a faster response than something like online reporting. The app is, if you understand the concepts of social media, the app is as real time as it gets. You know, the online reporting has a slightly slower process because it's a web page.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Nicholas Hutchinson from TV6. Mr. Andrews, in relation to the online reporting, what is there to ensure that persons don't make frivolous reports of laws being broken to real reports, and how exactly, what kind of resources are going into following up on these reports to see whether they are fake or real?
All right. Well, the truth is, like anything else with progress, because we had the same situation with the app, I'm not going to sit down here and tell you there are always kind of stupid people out there that will do stupid things. The fact of the matter is, though, whether you make false reports via the app or whether you go into the police station and make false reports, the making of a false report is an offense. I mean, I'll allow Mr. Chandler to further go here, but I don't think because it's on an app or because it's on the online platform that you evade the fact that you're wasting police time. All right? So my recommendation to people would be that may not be in your best interest to do. Having said that, as it relates will say this is new. So we know what it's supposed to look like theoretically, but if tomorrow you to try it and you call me and say, well, you know, Dwight, it didn't work, we will get it to work, right? But right now we think what we have is enough, but as it moves along, we will make the necessary adjustments, because this is a culture change. The culture change is taking place both at the police service and for the public. From a public perspective, it's getting people to reorganize their habits and their patterns and being comfortable going online to make a report. That's going to be new. And for the police, it's going to be a culture change, because for nothing else, online reporting is going to make the average police officer far more accountable. Right? Because now the process is going to go through. We are saying we are going to assign an investigator. We are saying we are going to assign a number to the case. So it's going to be harder to simply go to station X and say, Sergeant so-and-so working on the case, and here he's not there. You know, you won't be able to evade it forever anymore, because now the person will know your name, they will know, everything will be attached to the person, because as much as we get information from them, they will have all the information on us also. So this is going to be a seismic shift of sorts in terms of the way we do business, but it is more service friendly, and the Commissioner's desire as part of 21st century policing is to move things more in a service element and stop burdening the public with having to make reports of a crime. They have already been a victim once. We shouldn't have to put them through the hassle of feeling that level of, you know, discomfort coming into a police station. So we are trying to move it in the next direction.
If I could just clarify again, going back to the use of technology, the app that we had and the online reporting, the use of the app was very instrumental to assist the police service in arguably our success in trying to deal with COVID-19 regulations. Yes. The majority of arrests that we had during COVID of persons breaching the regulations, it came from the app.
Yeah.
So because again, it goes to the concept, if you see something, say something. So persons, they were taking photographs, they were sending the messages, and the police were responding. And I want this to be clear. These persons must not feel intimidated to know that, listen, if I'm giving wrong information, the law is only if there's a deliberate intent. Correct. So if it is that you did it with the best of intentions, so I want persons to feel comfortable to come forward, because on many occasions during the COVID regulations, Persons will send a report to us, there are 10 persons that are in a house and music is blasting. When we turn up there, all 10 persons live in the house. So it's not that you wasted police time. In your intention, you actually thought that persons were breaching the regulations. So that is not, we're not going to hunt down someone for trying to waste police time. So this is an avenue for confidentiality. All we want is for you to forward the information to us and for us to act.
Commissioner, just switching gears a little bit, in relation to officers being suspended, how many, if you can give me a number, how many officers at the moment are suspended and with pay?
We are roughly 280 odd on suspension. We have 24 actually in prison. What we are doing now, we are setting the relevant tribunals. Persons should not be suspended indefinitely. It is a burden to the taxpayers. As I mentioned, it's over $50 million odd. It is also unfair to me because I'm getting a false impression where it shows on paper I have 300 police officers when I do not have. We have to bring in other police officers to replace them. And even to some of these police officers, there could be a minor situation where you should have been suspended for 6 months, but you've been on suspension for several years. It is very unfortunate, and we are now, Mr. Chandler, you want to clarify where we're going pertaining to the suspensions?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to say too much simply because we are in a very pivotal stage right now. There is a particular matter that was filed and it's to be dealt with next week with the courts. I want to be very guarded in what I say, but I will say that in terms of the suspension, as the Commissioner alluded to, the tribunals, the systems are being put in place in terms of the 40 record system, so that we have an effective and efficient tribunal process. That is, that there's a recording system and everything is in place and trained. Persons have been in training for this, and we should, I would say, perhaps at the start of July, be able to hit the ground running with tribunals. Because a lot of people have been asking when. Well, I think that the IT department has sorted through and with providing us with the requisite hardware and software for the technology to advance the dispensation and dissemination of justice, that is tribunals, because you know, justice delayed is justice denied. So
that's it? Okay. Thank you very much, members of the media, and I look forward to the Express having a headline on Sunday trying to get me to change my mind yet again. And then Kirkwood will just send a response 3 hours and 23 minutes later. Have a nice day. Yeah.